September the 9th, 2024. And I know I'm posting this a little bit late, but there's a good reason for that, so bear with me because I'm giving you not one, but two amazing whiskeys of the week that we're really excited about here at Love-A-Dram. This is one of our favorite distilleries. It's a new distillery. It just started production in 2017, but it's so good on every single level. The distillery I'm talking about is called Nc'Nean, and Nc'Nean is a distillery that's located in the western Highlands of Scotland. It's located just east of the Isle of Mull and sort of south of Ardnamurchan on that western peninsula, and very remote location. But the distillery is on a big, large, beautiful estate from what I gather. And they are ticking all the boxes when it comes to doing stuff right, or at least ethically. And they've really gone out of their way to create a sustainable distillery. And I got to hand it to the founder, who is Annabelle Thomas. It's a woman's own distillery, so that's a nice thing. A woman's owned and operated, and she decided that she was going to do things a little bit differently and try and be as sustainable as possible. So it's you can tick almost every single box of all the feel-good boxes you want to tick. The whiskey is organic. It's all organic Scottish barley, so it's all grown in Scotland and organically grown. The bottles are recycled, even the tubes are recycled. Their power source is local forest products that they use and then replant trees. So they've really gone out of their way to build something that's, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a whole bunch of different credentials that they have, but it's basically someone who's looking long-term towards the future and doing it in a very socially and environmentally ethical way. So what I have, and the reason we're a little bit late on this whatever this is, I don't know, I guess it's a podcast with whiskey tasting notes. The reason we're a little bit late on that is because it took me a minute to source a new batch, a new expression that was released recently by Nc'Nean. So I'm going to get to that in a second because that's really special and cool, and we're going to get into a little bit of the weeds when it comes into distilling and what that means and what that brings to the flavor. I had been for years of the opinion that almost all the flavor comes from the cask maturation, and I still think a huge proportion of it comes from the cask, but it's amazing what can be done when the recipes for distilling are changed, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So that's what this release is. So I want to first go to the main release. It's, I guess, a core line release, but it's done in batches every single year. This is from batch SB20. So the cool thing is you can go on the website and type in the batch number, and it'll tell you all the information you want to know, including the cask, all the different casks that were used, all the pertinent information that a whiskey fan might want to research. And so, yeah, they're really using technology in a really good way. This is their organic single malt. Nice bottle, very pretty. Their organic single malt is, this one is particularly matured in ex-red wine and American whiskey barrels with a touch, about 3% Oloroso sherry in it, and it's such a lovely, beautiful, drinkable whiskey. And it's a young whiskey, and that's the interesting thing that they do there at Nc'Nean, is that they have basically two sort of recipes that they do, and this was all stuff that they learned from their original master distiller, who was Jim Swan, who is very famous and well known in the Scottish whiskey world for establishing many different distilleries around the world, and he was the original master distiller for Nc'Nean when they first started. He sadly passed away in 2019. But what they realized is that they could experiment with different recipes for whiskeys, some that were designed to be drunk and enjoyed young, and some that were designed to be drunk and enjoyed when they were older and more mature. And to do that effectively, you need two different types of recipe when it comes to the distillation, in terms of what you actually take from the entire distillate run. So when in distilling, we can get into this in a separate video, but there's a whole, when the alcohol vapors come up out of the still and they're collected in the linum, they come down through the condenser. There's all sorts of, the heads are full of what they call, the first part of the run is full of lots of sort of toxic chemicals and things you don't want. And then you have the run of the spirit, and then you have at the end the tails, which are also full of compounds that are undesirable and things you don't want. So the distillers take from the middle part of the distillation run. And so what Nc'Nean have done is they experiment with taking more from the early cut of the run and leaving the rest of it, taking that and using that particular run of distillate to make their young whiskeys that are designed to be enjoyed young. This one in particular, I think was distilled in 2019, bottled in 2023. So 4-year-old whiskey. But for a 4-year-old whiskey, wow, there's so much going on. There's lots and lots of flavor from this. The nose has got beautiful caramel notes on it, very strong from the American whiskey. They didn't say bourbon, so it is American whiskey, so that could be something different. And the flavor, oh yeah, so pleasant, sweet. It tastes like you've just had a nice, like a cruller or some kind of a nicely made, not too sweet donut or something like that. It's beautiful. It's got cereal notes to it. It's got friendly fruit notes to it, and it's a little bit of a woody spice from the oak maturation. Absolutely beautiful whiskey. This one sells locally here in Baltimore in the USA for about $90. Yeah, it's worth every penny. Now, bear in mind, these are 700 milliliter bottles. So, where is it? Yep, 700. So they are what some of my friends like to call miniatures. They're not the standard 750, so you're getting a little bit less whiskey, but that's the standard size that they bottle at over in the UK. So this is a wonderful organic single malt whiskey that's readily available, I think, in a lot of different liquor stores around the area. Highly recommend it. It's such a great feel-good whiskey. Beautiful on every level, and you can feel good about drinking it because you're helping to save the world. And enjoying a nice whiskey. So now, remember I talked about they have whiskeys that are designed to be drunk. It's short term. It's sort of younger whiskeys, and whiskeys that are designed to be matured and aged for longer. So when they have that, the matured longer term whiskeys are only about 10% or so of the production. So every time they change over, they have a release when some of the characteristics of the previous run of distillate also are going through the current run of distillate, and so you get a very different flavor profile that's really interesting, and comes out with lots of different flavor compounds because they're taking a broader section of the run of distillate that comes out of the still. We'll go into detail about that. I'll do another video and talk about distillation and all that sort of stuff in more depth. But If you think of it like a spectrum of light, the light spectrum, Roy G. Biv, right? So on the Roy side, you have the infrared stuff. That's the stuff you don't want, right? Those are the heads. And then on the blue side, the violet side, you have the ultraviolet stuff. That's the tails, the stuff you don't want on that side. So the visible light spectrum is kind of what the distillers are using to select the distillate that's going to be aged in barrels to produce amazing whiskey. So the whiskeys enjoyed younger are taken from more of the early cut of that, sort of like the red through orange, yellow, maybe green, right? So they take that, and that's what's in this whiskey. For this one, they're switching over for the longer term whiskeys, which are taking the fuller piece of the spectrum. You're getting more of the different chemical compounds that are affecting the distillate. So it produces a very interesting experience, and that's why I'm a little bit late with this, so apologies for this on the delay of the video, but I was waiting to try and get my hands on this bottle in particular, and it didn't disappoint. This one is called the Huntress, and this is their spring release when they change from the longer term distillate to the shorter term distillate, if that makes sense. There's better terms for it, I'm sure, but that's what's produced in this. This is bottled at 48.5%, so a tiny bit stronger than this one, which is bottled at 46%. This one sells here locally for around $109. And this is a one-time of year release that they have. And it is really, it's so good. Beautiful, rich color on there. There's a tiny bit more sherry in this, but there's more, they actually use bourbon for this particular cask recipe, and as well as red wine, which is about, I think, 30-some% of it. So wine notes, bourbon notes, a little bit of sherry notes. Makes for a really nice recipe on that. It's such a pretty whiskey. It really is. Lovely on the nose, delicate sort of almost floral notes that come through, and that's beautiful. That's got a big mouthfeel. It's slightly oily in a very pleasant way, loaded with fruit pastry. They basically said they were trying to create a British dessert called cherry bakewell, which is a sort of I guess a cherry tart kind of a thing. Yeah, they definitely got it. It's got cereal, it's got fruit, it's got sweetness. It is an absolutely lovely dram, and I highly recommend both of these whiskeys. You may find other ones. This is their spring release when they change the recipe. There's also a fall release as well, and then they have a couple of other things. But bear in mind, this is a very new distillery, so we expect to see fantastic things from them to come in the years to come. So yeah, fantastic whiskeys. Nc'Nean. See if they can find it on your local shelves. If you've already had it, let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. Anyway, Slanja.